What's going on, everybody? Tim from Tiffen Orbital again. As you can probably tell, I'm wearing the same clothes that I was 2 days ago because I recorded all these videos at the same time. So, Space Junk Sabers. Again, I've said it time and time again how much I appreciate Nevin's work from Space Junk Sabers. I have been looking forward to doing this video because I feel like people really need to understand the amount of work that goes into some of these hilts. And I'm sure, Nick from Starfall can also appreciate like some of these sabersmiths that do these one-off hilts. A lot of work and thought goes into some of these hilts. So there's some things that I noticed about this particular build that I want to talk about because some of the stuff that goes into these hilts, people will never see. Some of the stuff I can appreciate as an installer, but other stuff that's just like engineered into these hilts that you'll never see. So I want to talk about that. We'll talk about the chassis. We'll do a quick demo, and we'll be on our way. Right. So this is a steampunk themed hilt, and it screams steampunk. I mean, there is a vacuum tube in this thing, in the crystal chamber. There are some valves. There are really, really cool, subtle touches that I really, really appreciate. So, without further ado, let's talk about the chassis first, and then we'll get into the hilt, and we'll do a demo, right? So, let's come into Fusion. This is the chassis that I did for this particular hilt. It's, again, just greeblies everywhere. Just stuff everywhere. I mean, I'm getting to the point now where I just want to make sure, like, I'm trying to get so that there's just channels everywhere. It's because I knew that I wanted to buff and rub this and make it look like bronze or copper. And buff and rub to me looks so much better when there are like grooves and channels for that oil paint and wax paint to grab onto. It just makes the hilt or the chassis look a lot more dynamic and real, right? So greeblies along each side. I got Tiffen Orbital on one side. I did put a kill switch down I did put a kill switch down in this chamber. We've got our battery tray around back here with some other just light greebly work. And that's it, right? So I do make the connection to the top of the hilt up here with some set screws. I did have to make an indentation because I did want to light the bottom of the vacuum tube that is in the crystal chamber for this build, right? Profi board sits in here. It does press fit and slide up into this channel just to help secure it. And that's it, right? Nice and easy, nice and simple. Let's come up top and talk about this guy, right? So here it is. Listen, I mean, if this doesn't scream steampunk to you, what are you really doing? Right? I don't even know where to begin. I really don't. So first, I guess I'll just talk about some of the subtle stuff that I noticed about this hilt, right? So along the bottom in the pommel and in this thin neck section are old camera focus rings from camera lenses. This is a Tiffen camera focus ring. This is a camera focus ring. That's the kind of stuff that I really, really appreciate seeing, right? We've got some really, really nice etched accents on the grip here. This mesh, again, like this mesh in the grip is really, really rad. I've not seen that before. Just a really, really cool, unique hilt. There's like this valve here, right? All right, so we've got a Canon Y clamp. I did wire this up, so there's a main and an aux underneath this clamp card. Clamp card is from Brad over at SlothFurnace. The client had, one of the prerequisites for this hilt, the client wanted blinkies everywhere. I mean, the client wanted this thing to have lights all over it. And I did the best I could, right? So I've got, in this crystal chamber, there is a small vacuum tube. So I lit this vacuum tube from underneath with a circular 1515 Neopixel ring from Kims Cantina. It was a small one. It was like 8 millimeters diameter. So it was perfect size for me to fit up underneath this vacuum tube. So the vacuum tube is animated. Now behind the vacuum tube, I have some Edison filaments, and I made these like lens holders for the Edison filaments. They're brass, so I was able to slide the Edison filament in, so it's not, that way the light from the Edison filament is pointing back, not out of the crystal chamber to like blind you and take away from the light that's coming out of the vacuum tube. So that was a nice little custom touch that I did with those, right? So we've got two Edison filaments in white back here and in the back. And underneath this clamp card, I have two SMD LEDs. They are a white and a blue blinking SMD LEDs that are underneath the clamp, and they blink, right? Making our way up. So again, like just the amount of detail that is in this hilt, and a lot of Nevin's hilts, almost all of them. There's just a lot of detail and greebly work. Like there's some heat sinks here. This red button he made it's threaded, so that serves as your blade retention, right? It's just a really, really fantastic hilt. So I want to talk really quick about, we'll come down to the bottom here. I want to talk about some of the stuff that I noticed during this install, right? So, you know, I just, when I get hilts from Nevin at Space Junk, I just kind of, whichever one jumps out at me is the one that I will start on, right? And I don't talk to Nevin about it at all. I just start installing. So what I noticed, first of all, in this vacuum tube chamber, I noticed that there was a corkscrew, like a copper corkscrew spring. It was essentially a very, very tightly wound spring for wire management. So I was able to get my leads, right, from the chassis all the way up to the switch box, the SMD LEDs, and the 3 conductors for my blade. Nevin just made a wire management system that was just like a spring. Now, I thought the spring was, it really just looked, I'll probably post pictures here. It just looked like a spring from a door stopper. You know, the old school door stoppers, they make that sound when you flick them behind the door. That's what I thought it was. Nevin actually made that. I mean, he made it. He twisted it and turned it around like a piece of all thread and just made it by hand. Right? Again, so like this is the kind of stuff that people don't even understand the amount of work that goes into some of these hilts. Another thing that I noticed, right? So for my PCBs, right, my lit PCBs, I need to secure them inside of the emitter. Otherwise, they're just going to be free floating and they're going to come out. So typically what I do is I'll pop a hole if there isn't one already, like an M3 or an M2 for like a set screw to hold my PCB emitter in. Nevin had a set screw inside of this already that was hidden underneath this entire emitter section. So there are 3 screws around the circumference of the top of this, and this whole emitter section comes off, and it's hiding the retention screw for the PCB. I just think touches like that to hide screw holes and just stuff like that just really... That takes a lot of beforehand planning and thought, and it's just the kind of stuff that I really appreciate, right? So, enough out of me. Let's do a quick demo. So we'll come back to the top here. So to use the hilt, you want to unscrew your grip. Oh, we'll talk about the chassis too. So here's the chassis. I did do a pass of copper and bronze mixed together buff and rub. All right, and then I did come back and do some silver accents for the greeblies here, and just some light like paint. I feel like adding just very, very subtle, small amounts of color onto a chassis like that really, really make it stand out. So I'm really happy with the way that this chassis came out, right? Profi board sits here, like I said. So you take your battery, flat part of your battery goes at the negative. The spring side is your negative. Okay, this was already on. If you don't hear an audible cue, you hit your kill switch. And then you slide your grip on. So there's that vacuum tube that's animated from below. Okay, and here we go. Right, so there's that clamp card. Let's come down to the bottom here. There's the clamp card lit with some blinking blue and white SMD LEDs. What I also do appreciate is we get shine through in this grill section up here as well, which is another really, really cool touch. And there's the Edison bulbs back there. So I wanted to light behind the vacuum tube, so they weren't pointing directly at your face, at your eye holes.
Watch this.
Now this is pod racing.
See what else we got. There's that. So in the config, you've got your main blade. The Edison filaments are their own blade. The vacuum tube is its own blade, and the SMD LEDs are just tied into the main blade power. Let's see what else we got.
Hello, Zuko here.
So this is a 7/8 inch blade holder. So to get the blade plug is also custom. This was done by Nevin at Space Junk. So to get your blade plug out, you want to unscrew that red grub screw. Set your blade in. Now tighten down. So I have noticed that you really want to kind of crank down on that grub screw just to make sure that your blade is nice and secure. And you're ready to go. Man, this thing is so rad. Sounds fantastic. Let's see what else we got.
That's a miracle. It will be your grave.
So, twist to activate, twist to deactivate are all on. To activate your color change, you want to hold down aux and tap main.
Red, orange, red, dark orange, orange, revert.
And then when you find the color you want, you hit main. I just reverted it. Let's see what else we've got on here.
I'm never touching that thing again.
Fantastic hilt. Feels phenomenal. Really, really nice. Really, really, really nice. Again, like I really appreciate the kind of detail that goes into some of these handmade hilts. It's just, I feel like each one I get, every new one I get for install that comes from Space Junk, each one is better than the last, which is, I don't understand how that's even possible. But anyway, to the client, thank you very much for trusting me with your install. To the viewers, if anyone has any questions about this particular install or my chassis or anything, please don't be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you, always. Thanks for watching, everybody.